The human design system. What is human design and how can it help you navigate your life? Before I go into the dynamics of human design, I would just like to give a little disclaimer. While the human design system is an effective and efficient system, I have my own personal reservations. My reservations are more of a bias. And to understand my bias, let's go into the history of human design. I've always been fascinated by how people in the world relate, different races, different cultures, and I've always been fascinated by the history of people. Knowing the history of something gives you a deeper and better insight about that thing, and it informs you on how best to use that thing, or if you should even use it at all. And that has also shaped the way I relate with human design. Human design was discovered by this guy called Ra. Ra went on a vacation this one time to just, isolate and seclude himself. Now, while on that vacation, Ra had an encounter with what he calls the voice. Now, this voice spoke to him. It was this voice that gave him the principles and the concepts of human design. This voice came to him and this voice started talking to him and told him to write these things down. And then the next day he tore it up because he was like, what the hell is this? But the voice came back the next day and told him to write it back down. He spent about 8 days doing this. And in those 8 days, he didn't eat anything, he didn't drink anything, and he didn't sleep. He was like awake, just putting down all these things for those 8 days, So the voice just kept communicating with him and telling him what to do. Now, I don't have any issue with that story. I grew up in a religious background, and trust me, religion has way weirder sounding stories, So, I have no issue with Ra's story, That's not where my bias is. Now, my bias comes in the fact that this guy is a rich, privileged white man. Yes. That's what I have a problem with. That's where my bias lies. Again, this does not take away from the system, but this is my own personal bias.
I'm usually very skeptical and critical about systems that were created by privileged white men.
Most of their concepts are usually rooted in white supremacy. It just seems like another form of colonization to me. But again, that's my own personal bias. The bias doesn't stop there, because when we look at the human design system, it is a combination of different concepts. Astrology, Kabbalah, I Ching. It's like a mixture of all these things. So there's also a chance that, again, don't forget, white man discovered this thing. There's also the perspective that this person plagiarized this other system and put them together and formed his own system. There's also that perspective. There were already existing systems that went deep. If you have a lot of esoteric knowledge, you understand things like astrology, I Ching, Chinese zodiacs and stuff like that, you would see that these systems on their own are already very effective. But human design now takes these different systems, puts them together, and gives us the human design system. Sounds like what again? Religion. Yeah. So it's just like when you also go down the history of religion, you realize that a lot of religious concepts are a mixture of different things put together to form like a unique organized system. Not necessarily unique, because when you copy and copy from different places and paste it together, okay, it's unique. Yeah, it's unique. Human design also has that type of history. Now, this is not taking away from Ra's experience. Again, I don't have any issues with how he discovered human design, but it's just a perspective to explore. These were systems that already existed. human design is accumulation of these different systems. It's also why the human design system is very effective. The history of things are very important because it also shows the personalities, the situations that were happening during the time of the discovery. Human design helps you know yourself on a deep level. It also helps you decondition years of conditioning from your parents, your environment, society, things like that. It helps you decondition those things so that you can unravel the real and true you. But then when you unravel this real and true you, human design tells you that is who you are. And it's like, stick to being that person. I have a problem with that. It's like therapy. You go and see a therapist and there's a point where you get to and you're like, the therapy has done its job. Now you have to move on and start to use what you've learned. To summarize my disclaimer around my reservations for human design. First of all, the history. I find the person that discovered human design be a bit worrying. Secondly, plagiarism. Human design is a mixture of different concepts. When you put all these different concepts together, it forms like a beautiful system. That is the human design system. Very efficient, very effective, but I can't help but think about how it's just a copy and paste from different other systems that were working perfectly on their own. The human design system has this formula of 7 years. So when you discover the human design system, you have 7 years to start the deconditioning process and to integrate the things that are you and to get rid of all that does not serve you. So the first 7 years is very crucial. I haven't finished my 7 years. So when I finish my 7 years, let's see how that goes. Also, we have the problem of the cult-like following. The same way organized religions act like, oh, this is a set principle, this is what you must do, this. That's also how you see a lot of people in the human design community act. Even the person who discovered human design, he said it himself that a lot of people are going to like deify him. And I can't help but also liken that to religion, how people deify the people that brought the religion. All of a sudden everybody wants to live like them, everybody wants to do everything like them. Oh, this is how you're supposed to be because so and so lived like this is the blueprint for how to live. And then people forget their own uniqueness. They throw it out the window and they just start to like mirror this person that they think is like the alpha and omega of character and personality. Like, this is how we're supposed to be. Always look at people's history. I'm not saying judge people by their past or where they came from, but these things are important because it tells a lot about a person's motivation, why they do what they do, why they did what they did, like their character, their history says a lot about them, about their patterns. Have they let go of certain patterns, or are they still operating in certain patterns based on where they came from? That's just like my disclaimer about human design. And again, it doesn't take away from the effectiveness of the systems. These are just the disclaimers and reservations, which for me, it's a personal bias that I have. But still, the system is very useful to me and I'm still using it amongst other tools. So I'm not like a one-tool person because the universe is abundant. Like, there's so many tools that are here for us. And unfortunately, some people pick one tool and stick to it and say, oh, I die here. I'm not that person. Different tools work in different ways. And, at different stages of my life, I've had different tools that have helped like get me out of that stage. So I do not concentrate on one tool, whether that tool is religion, whether that tool is like astrology, whether it's numerology, human design. They're just all these different tools and they work for different parts of my life and they can work for different parts of your life. So yeah, now that I'm done with the disclaimer, let's go into like human design proper and how you can access your own human design. I don't want to make this video too long. I'll make that a part 2. Leave the link to that video in the description.